If the submersible did not implode, then these 5 people are living your worst nightmare ever. You are now within minutes of horror, and your only chances of survival is hitting that like button. With that being said, let's continue on with the video. Now there are really only 2 things that could have happened to the missing Titanic submersible. A strong current swept it out to sea where it's now fully lost, or an implosion could have happened. Now there are rescuers saying they are hearing knocking every 30 minutes, but I do not believe that's coming from the submersible. Unfortunately, the hull of the submersible is not made of metal or tin or anything that's going to cause an echoing noise. It's made of carbon fiber, which would most likely make an undetectable dull thud. So even if all these men are banging inside the submersible, more than likely we're not going to hear it. Now the rescuers are trained to differentiate noises typically heard in the ocean from noises made by trapped survivors, but you do have the Titanic down there that could be making its own noise. And even though there's noises every 30 minutes in intervals, even rescuers admit we don't know if something could be banging against the Titanic every so often producing this noise. We just don't know. It could even be some undiscovered marine life or creature down there. We've explored more of outer space than we have our own oceans, and the thought of that is extremely terrifying. That's what makes the waters of this planet so scary. We don't know what exactly is down there. Now another idea is that the submersible imploded. Think about this for a second. You're in a tiny can, a space smaller than your most common elevator, 13,700 feet deep in the water. I'll paint a picture. The Burj Khalifa is the world's tallest building on the planet in the United Arab Emirates. Where they're diving, you can fit almost 7 of the Burj Khalifa stacked on top of each other. They're going to a water pressure 300 times greater than Earth's gravity. If the submersible was not properly fitted to deal with this pressure, then it would be an instantaneous catastrophe, and by all accounts, it sounds like the owner, Stockton Rush, was against safety and regulations because it slowed down innovation. His own words you can see on Ocean Gate's website. So they really needed this sub to be able to handle the water pressure and some, because the water pressure can increase at any given moment. Now, besides the fact of them being found safe and sound, the next best option would be an implosion for these people, because an implosion is instantaneous. They would not have felt anything. The submersible would have been squashed like a can, but everything inside would have just dispersed. If the submersible did not implode and they are lost at sea, death is inevitable because we cannot get them in time. Then what these people are going through, I would not wish on my own worst enemy. This has really unlocked a new fear in me. I wasn't claustrophobic before, but now I'm even having second thoughts stepping foot inside an elevator. Like I said, the submersible is smaller than an elevator. I saw a diagram of what it looked like inside, and only one person had enough room to stretch out their legs. Shahzada Dawood and his son look like bigger people. Even the other 3 men look like adults on the taller side. So you have 5 big men in a tiny space, which by looking at it, looks like it can only fit 2 at the most, stuck deep inside the dark sea, with only 3 days of oxygen. And not only are you dealing with your own fear, anxiety, and panic, but you're also watching 4 other people dealing with the same thing as well. You are watching insanity take place as death is looming over you. And not only that, these 5 people brought limited rations with them, not 3 days worth of food. So they are also dealing with starvation, dehydration, and limited oxygen. This is your worst nightmare come to life. I had someone in the comment section of my last video say they'd rather deal with this than drown, because with lack of oxygen they just slowly slip into unconsciousness. But you do not realize the lack of oxygen is the very last step. These people are being mentally tortured with fear and anxiety, and also dealing with physical torture when it comes to starvation and dehydration. The lack of oxygen is the very last thing that will happen to them. And then on top of everything else, their normal bodily functions are still occurring. They still have to urinate, they still have to defecate in this tiny space, which I'm sure they did. So if I had to pick drowning, which is also instantaneous, your lungs instantaneously fill up with water, You're not flapping around the water gasping for air like in the movies. No, it's an instantaneous death. Or I have to deal with this. I'm picking drowning or imploding. Even if we do manage to find these 5 people will never mentally be the same again. They are going to be forever mentally scarred after this event. Yes, they are billionaires. Yes, they are rich. But I don't think any amount of money is going to change what happened. You couldn't pay me $1 billion to deal with what they're going through. The smell inside that tiny submersible has to be something fierce. And if they are without power, they're also in complete darkness. Now, I also did learn a couple creepy facts about the submersible and the Titanic as well. Stockton Rush's wife, Wendy Rush, is the descendant of 2 other people who passed away on the Titanic, Isidore and Ida Strauss. These were her great-great-grandparents. These 2 were modeled after the characters they were seen hugging in bed as the ship was sinking. That is a very odd and creepy thing to say, that not only did your great-great-grandparents pass away on the Titanic, but your husband was also involved in an incident that involved the Titanic. Also, in 1898, 14 years before the Titanic sank, there was a book called Futility written by Morgan Robinson about a ship in April called Titan that struck an iceberg then sank in the Atlantic Ocean. An eerie premonition to the Titanic, which in 1912 struck an iceberg in April, then sank to the bottom of the ocean. Also, Eerie is like the Titanic. The Titan did not have enough lifeboats to save everyone. And Eerie is the fact. The submersible is called Titan. So we really need to stop calling things Titan when heading out into the Atlantic Ocean. We also do have to remember that the Titanic is a graveyard of over 1,500 souls. Even the descendants of those who were on board the Titanic said, we have to stop making Disneyland of this area, which I do have to fully agree with. There's nothing we really need to know about the Titanic. There's nothing we really need to research. Just let this area be a burial ground. Now, at the end of the day, I do hope these 5 people are found safe and alive. There are people that are saying these people got what they deserved, and yes, did they lack common sense? Should they have not gone down there? Yes, that's true. Was Stockton Rush a fool for being against safety regulations? Yes, he was. But again, what I laid out is something you would not want your worst enemy to go through if they are stuck and lost at sea. This is the greatest nightmare, the greatest torture that could happen to a person. I have a fear of the flesh-eating disease, of brain-eating amebas. They are my greatest fear. But even I think that what's happening to these 5 people is actually worse than my greatest fear. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this channel and you want to see more, please subscribe. If you're already subscribed, please like, as any engagement does help the channel grow. Once again, thank you so much for your support.